everybody, DF here. Welcome to Beauties and Beasts, a podcast for all things Beauty and the Beast. I apologize for the last live stream, though. Even though we did have some technical difficulties with that one, I thank you for all the donations that you made to the International Rescue Committee. And we had raised a total of $48.22. I want to thank all of you. That money is going to go to a good cause. It's going to help people who are living in crisis zones due to war and displacement from their countries. And they're going to get the care they need for the coronavirus. Though I know there were some people who had given some last-minute donations in the last chat, and because of my microphone cutting out, we were not able to fulfill them. Once I get there, I'll try to make up for it in this live stream. I see BellaPinkSavage. Did you make any last-minute donations in the previous live stream? I just want to check. 280 gold beans. Would have been for a song. Did you have anything in mind? Like, do you want me to fulfill that right now, or should I wait until after the topic discussion? Like, I know Steve Samuels had sent a big donation of 5,000 gold beans at the end. I don't see him here right now, but let's give him a clap anyway. Okay, well, if he shows up, I'll ask how he wants to fulfill that, because I feel really bad that he sent such a big donation. We weren't able to fulfill it because of the technical difficulties. Should be easier now. I realize I only have those problems when I have other people co-hosting. I already talked to Podbean about that. Hopefully they'll fix it. Okay, so Bella wants to fulfill that request after. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Alright. Okay, so in this live stream, if you're just coming in, I will be taking donations, smaller ones because it's not a charity live stream. If you want to write a comment that you want read aloud or ask a question, the minimum cost is 5 gold beans. While I'm doing the topic discussion, please keep the comments or questions relative to the topic. Anything else will be saved for the end of the live stream. Alright, so on to the topic at hand. I've been ranting so much about my favorite fairy tale. If it wasn't obvious what it is right now, as suggested by the title, Beauty and the Beast, I've talked about many different versions, how much I love it. Let's talk about my least favorite fairy tale, Little Red Riding Hood. Specifically, I hate its original version, where, spoiler alert, Red Riding Hood and Grandma get eaten. Yeah, that terrified me as a kid. Well, understandably so. I was a little girl, I had a grandma, of course I was scared. Yeah, there are lots of versions of Little Red Riding Hood before Grimm's version of Little Red Cap in 1857. Charles Perrault, whom you may know have written fairy tales like Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, his French version was where we got the name Little Red Riding Hood. But since the Grimm fairy tale is the most popular, we'll start with that. Trigger warning, if you are somehow not familiar with the story of Little Red Riding Hood, there will be mentions of blood, gore, sexual assaults, pedophilia, and cannibalism due to the story's dark undertones, as if it wasn't obvious already. Yeah, this is not a very pleasant story. I don't know why it's a kid's fairy tale. Actually, I do, but... Okay, yeah, I see people getting scared by my declarations there, but I'll go there. Okay, before that, I'd like to thank my $5 plus patrons, Tyrannosaurus Venom and Anime Guy 1101. Note that if you're a patron, you get special perks such as access to bonus episodes. I had recently released a new excerpt to the novel I am working on, and that's for patrons only. And you could also have your comments read aloud in streams for no extra cost, because you're already making a monthly commitment, you know? I'm doing live streaming every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time temporarily during this epidemic, but if this ends up being successful and people seem to like this system, then I will continue doing it this way, but we'll see, because we don't know what the future holds for us at the moment. And remember, minimum donation is 5 gold beans for questions or comments you want read aloud. Click the gift button to get your gold beans. And also be sure to check out my merchandise on Redbubble, merchandise related to Beauties and Beasts, and also some Pride merch if you want to show your colors. So, on to the story of the Brothers Grimm Little Red Cap, which is what they originally called it. You know, I need less cheery music for this. Hold on. Yeah, we'll just keep it on this song. This seems to fit. Okay. So, once upon a time, there was a little girl who was loved by everyone, especially her grandmother, who gave her a little red cap of velvet, and thus she was called Little Red Cap. In Charles Perrault's version, it was a cloak with a hood, but, you know, I'm just going to stick with Little Red Riding Hood because everyone knows that name. Alright, so one day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother gives her a basket of wine and cake to bring to her grandmother's house in the woods because she is sick in bed. And she tells her daughter to stay on the path and to not talk to strangers along the way. And to also be very careful in how she carries the wine. Okay, Mommy, Red Riding Hood says. And of course, 5 minutes later, what does she do? As soon as a hungry wolf comes out and asks where she's going, because a talking wolf is not suspicious at all, Little Red Riding Hood innocently says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to my grandma's house. She lives just down that way, and she's very sick in bed, and bringing her this wine and cake. Yeah, tell her all your personal information, won't you?" Hello? He's a wolf. He's got teeth. Also, he's talking. Does nobody teach little girls that wolves aren't supposed to talk? Just saying. And so, and the wolf is thinking that, you know what, I'm very hungry. Why don't I eat both the grandma and the little girl? Because that's apparently what wolves do. And so, hatching up a plan, he goes, "You know, what's your hurry, Little Red Riding Hood? It's a beautiful day, the birds are singing, and Grandma would love those little flowers over there. I'm sure those will cheer her right up." So Red Riding Hood goes off the path to pick the flowers while the wolf, now that she's distracted, runs to Grandmother's house, knocks on the door, and goes, "Hey, Grandma, it's Little Red Riding Hood. I've got some yummy treats for you." Because he can somehow imitate little girl's voice. In the grandma's defense, she was probably sick and didn't really pay attention to it. Grandma lets him in. The wolf jumps onto the bed and eats the grandmother, and then puts on the grandma's clothes. Yeah. So, a short time later, Red comes in with the bouquet and the basket, sees Grandma in bed, and the following dialogue ensues. Honestly, if you don't know how this part goes, maybe it's better that your parents had never told you this story at all, because it's kind of traumatizing to the little kid's eye. And oh boy, I can't use music for no, keep the music on. Yeah, the dialogue. Red Riding Hood goes, "Grandma, what big eyes you have. The better to see you with. Grandma, what big ears you have. The better to hear you with. Grandma, what big hands you have. The better to hug you with. Grandma, what big teeth you have. The better to eat you with." And yeah, you get what happens. I don't like this story, okay? The wolf swallows Red Riding Hood up and then falls asleep in bed now that his tummy is full. Meanwhile, a huntsman is walking by Grandma's cottage and hears some really loud snoring, and knowing that Grandma doesn't snore, he breaks into the house, finds the wolf with a bulging stomach, and uses scissors to cut the belly, and out comes Little Red Riding Hood and Granny, who are somehow unharmed and did not disintegrate from stomach acid. Yeah, this part doesn't really make much sense. And Red Riding Hood says, "Oh, how terrible! How dark it was inside the wolf!" While the wolf is still out, Red Riding Hood goes to collect some stones to fill the wolf's belly, so that when he wakes, he falls over and he dies. Yeah. The huntsman takes a wolf's skin for himself, and Red Riding Hood vows that she will always follow the path and not talk to strangers anymore. And lesser known, the Grimm story actually has a little bit of an epilogue to this. Sometime later, Little Red Riding Hood is going to her grandma's once again and runs into another wolf. Remember what happened last time? She goes, nope, and runs straight to her grandma's. And then they hatch a plan and shut the door so the wolf won't come in. And the wolf comes and he does the same thing as the first one, disguising his voice, but nobody answers because they're not stupid this time. So the wolf climbs on the roof to wait for Red Riding Hood to come out. And then Grandma starts coming up with a plan. In front of the house was this big trough, and Grandma had recently made some sausages and tells Little Red Riding Hood to take a pail and take the water she had used to boil the sausages and pour it into the trough. Enticed by the smell of the sausages, the wolf leans forward, loses his footing, and falls off the roof and into the trough where he drowns. So, yeah, it showed that Red Riding Hood actually had some character development and learned from her mistakes. Yeah, if you know the Three Little Pigs, this part kind of sounds a little bit familiar. What's with all the big bad wolves in these stories? And believe it or not, this is not the most messed up version of the fairy tale. You remember when I mentioned Charles Perrault? Well, in the 17th century, about 200 years before the Grimm's version, he was actually the one who came up with the idea of the wolf being the antagonist. And in the end, well, it ends with Red Riding Hood being eaten by the wolf, and that's it. As a moral and forewarning for pretty girls to avoid strangers. Yeah, Charles Perrault said that he used the wolf as the antagonist because wolves, as he said, resemble people. They can deceive with gentleness before showing their true colors. Because, at a glance, wolves can look like really big puppies, but, they got those sharp teeth. There's a Chinese version that was written in the Qing Dynasty, I hope I said that right, called The Tiger Grandma, which uses a tiger instead of a wolf. Obviously, because of geographical differences, tigers in China and wolves in Europe. And this was more about a tiger trying to get into a house full of kids while their mother was away. Actually, the earliest version came from Aesop's fables in the 6th century BCE. As you know, Aesop loved using wolves in his stories, like The Boy Who Cried Wolf and The Sheep in Wolf's Clothing. There's a Persian version called Redcapped, which is a gender-swapped version that has a boy protagonist instead of a girl. Probably the most messed up version of Red Riding Hood. Oh God, prepare yourself for this. This one's nasty. It's a Italian story, La Finta Nonna, or The False Grandma. And that has an ogre protagonist rather than a wolf. And when Little Red is invited inside, she is invited to eat what she thinks to be rice, steak, and wine, which are actually, the teeth, flesh, and blood left over from her grandmother. Yeah, yuck. I didn't know what other sound to put for that one. Oh God. Yes. So you see, the Grimm's version is tame compared to that one. Some folktales actually make Red a little bit smarter, like not easily deceived by the wolf. There are some versions where she comes up with a sort of, I have to use the bathroom kind of excuse, and relies on her wits rather than relying on a man to save her, like in the Grimm's version. And yeah, for those of you thinking this story already has some sexual implications, you are absolutely right. I hate to say it. Replacing sexual assaults with metaphorical eating. I mean, eating is a metaphor, obviously. Yeah, I hate saying this. Yeah, especially in versions where Red Riding Hood crawls into the bed with the false grandmother. And there's even one where the wolf commands that she take off her clothes and throw them into the fire before eating her. Yeah. This is unpleasant. Yeah, so with all that women have to go through in child and adulthood, I think the biggest danger out there It is the rapist. It's something that has happened since men and women coexisted, and it happens way too often. Now, we can't stop it from happening entirely, except maybe watch how you bring up your boys, just saying. But you can take precautions. Like, Little Red talked to a creature who appeared friendly at first, and I guess I wouldn't really talk to a wolf, and she had strayed from the path her mother told her to go on after being distracted by something pretty. Classic kidnapper pedophile move. Remember Hansel and Gretel and the gingerbread house? Same method. And the grandma getting eaten shows that not just kids can fall prey to this kind of manipulation, and that talking to strangers can put your loved ones at risk too. And then Red Riding Hood ends up paying the price. Her grandma too, for being too trusting. Look, I get the lesson this story's trying to tell, especially in the time that it was written, but this story still terrifies the hell out of me. I rather like the cleaner versions where Granny is just locked in the closet because the wolf doesn't have time, and the huntsman comes in before the wolf can eat either of them. I don't like the more graphic versions. Despite it being so dark, this has had so many film and TV versions. For some reason, a lot of them directed towards kids, even though they're terrifying. The most recent one is a 2011 teen horror type film with Amanda Seyfried, who you may know from Mean Girls and Mamma Mia, with the same director as the Twilight series. In that one, it has a town terrorized by a werewolf, and the interesting thing about that movie, it didn't really get well received by critics, but what I liked, it was not so much about not trusting strangers, but being wary of those who are closest to you. Spoiler alert, the wolf ends up being someone that she knows, not a stranger. So, totally different moral there. There was a version I saw that was done in 1987 by the Canon Film Group, and that one kind of had a more convoluted plot involving an evil Uncle Lord and twin brothers, and it would take me forever to go into detail in that plot. But what I liked about that one was that the wolf could turn into a human. So when he talked to Red Riding Hood, he looked like a harmless guy. She had no suspicions that he was really a wolf. And the granny in that one was not helpless. As soon as she sees this guy she doesn't know come into the house, she hits him over the head and goes to run for backup. Yeah, smart granny. It shows that, and it showed that the wolf couldn't deceive older women, but Red, who was much younger and had been sheltered from the evils of the world, didn't know any better. Another lesson. You gotta explain to your kids why they must be wary of strangers, and you want them to see the good in the world, but you also gotta teach them to be cautious. And a bad guy won't always look like a wolf, like in real life. A pedophile doesn't look like a pedophile. A kidnapper doesn't look like a kidnapper. It could just be any regular looking person. Also, I really like the songs in that one. I think, in that respect, they did a pretty good job. You may have seen my recent AMV on my YouTube channel, Disney Fanatic 2364. Red Riding Hood was one of the subplots used in the Broadway musical Into the Woods, which is very heavily inspired by Grimm's fairy tales. It was later adapted into a film in 2014, with Meryl Streep as the witch. And that one had Johnny Depp as a wolf. And the Little Red in there was a lot feistier, if not still naive. There are some more ridiculous and silly versions of Red Riding Hood, especially in cartoons. Disney once had a Silly Symphony, which was a crossover between the Three Little Pigs and Red Riding Hood. You remember that song, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? Yeah, makes sense that people would make that connection, because the Big Bad Wolf is antagonist in both fairy tales. And that one ended with the third little pig who built a brick house going to rescue Red Riding Hood before the wolf could eat her. In Roald Dahl's Revolting Rhymes, which was a small collection of poems based on fairy tales, had Red Riding Hood, instead of saying, "What big teeth you have," said, "Oh, Grandma, what a lovely fur coat you have on." And then she pulls out a pistol from her knickers and shoots the wolf dead. Yeah, that's an interesting twist. And then she ends up using the wolf skin for a coat. That shows you that all girls are helpless. Although probably has a couple of questions on gun control, but never mind. And then later in the book, in Roald Dahl's Three Little Pigs poem, he has the brick pig call for Red Riding Hood to take care of the wolf for him. And after she takes care of the wolf, she not only gets another second wolfskin coat, but also a pigskin bag. I know, that one was kind of like, wait, what? Okay, you're insane, man. Though honestly, the TV animated adaptation of these rhymes gave Red Riding Hood a more legitimate reason for that part. You had to see that one. And also, in that TV version, Red Riding Hood had a very sweet friendship, maybe more, with Snow White. I mean, come on, it's not just me. They did hold hands a lot and give each other flowers. It was kind of implied they were more than friends. The Looney Tunes had a episode with the three little pigs who didn't want the wolf to blow down their house, so they had sold the straw and the stick house to Bugs Bunny. And when the wolf comes, like, yeah, there's a straw house, blow it down. There's a stick house, blow it down. But I can't blow down the brick house. And Bugs tries to get revenge by dressing up as Little Red Riding Hood and totally embarrassing the wolf. Until Bugs says, "Well, serves you right for blowing my houses down. Not your houses, the pigs' houses." "Oh, I get it. It's those pigs." And then he ends up helping to blow up the brick house with dynamite as some revenge. That was a funny one. Another funny twist on the story, if you've ever seen the Rocky and Bullwinkle show from the 50s and 60s, the segment Fractured Fairy Tales had a role reversal between the wolf and Red Riding Hood, where the wolf was the one who was going off to Grandma's house, and Red Riding Hood, who owned a boutique, was trying to skin him for a wolfskin riding hood for a rich customer. Yeah, males aren't the only ones who can be predators. Remember Hansel and Gretel? Don't worry, that Red Riding Hood got her comeuppance. And they actually did Red Riding Hood again with that same series. And that one was called Red Riding Hoods Anonymous, where the wolf had tried to give up eating Red Riding Hoods, only to end up with exploding baskets and buying PTA tickets. Yeah, it makes much more sense when you're watching it. And there was an episode of Sesame Street where the characters, Red Riding Hood and the wolf, all wanted to switch roles for a change. That was a fun one. I remember that one. Like Red Riding Hood just going, "I'm gonna eat you up!" Ah! That was cute. My favorite version of Red Riding Hood, which I think everybody should see, is the 2005 animated movie Hoodwinked. That one had a poor animation quality, but an excellent script. And the plot of that one is where all the characters are interrogated by the cops after the incident. And they all tell each other stories, and I don't want to spoil it so much because it's so good and there are a lot of twists and turns and surprises. But what I love about the film, it really follows the theme that people are not who all they appear to be. Innocent little girls not so innocent, big bad wolves not so bad. Also, can I just say Patrick Warburton is best wolf? Another twist on the Red Riding Hood story is the ABC series Once Upon a Time, where at first we are led to believe in a flashback that Red Riding Hood's boyfriend Peter, as a reference to Peter and the Wolf, is the werewolf that's terrorizing the town, but it is actually Little Red who was the werewolf all along. And that the cloak her grandma had given her was meant to stop her from transforming, because the grandma had been a werewolf once as well. Now, you might be wondering, what does this fairy tale have to do with Beauty and the Beast? Because this really seems more like a Beauty versus Beast story. Well, believe it or not, sometimes this story is romanticized and creates a relationship with Little Red and the Wolf. Obviously, made less creepy in those situations. Yeah, there are versions where he tries not to eat her, but to court her. The poet Carol Ann Duffy had once wrote a poem of Little Red Riding Hood, using it as an extended metaphor for her real-life relationship with an older man. Not a healthy one, mind you. I think a better example of how this story's been romanticized is the cartoon series Ever After High, which features the children of fairy tale characters. Cerise Hood is the daughter of Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf. Their relationship is kept a secret, so Cerise has to hide her wolf ears and her wolf speed, and has to act like her older sister Ramona Bad Wolf is her sworn enemy. And the series is all about whether or not to follow the path set before you, and obviously, in this case, Red Riding Hood and the wolf had exceeded everyone else's expectations of them. And honestly, I'm behind the idea of Red Riding Hood and the wolf as a ship, as long as it's presented in a non-creepy way, like it is in Ever After High. Also, Red Riding Hood has been used in Legoland's Storybook ride, showing different scenes from different fairy tales, all the while Little Red is making her way through each story on her way to Grandma's house. Like when we get to the Hansel and Gretel part, she's seen taking a piece of the gingerbread house while the witch is spying on Hansel and Gretel. So overall, I hate the original tale of Red Riding Hood, but I love its reiterations, especially the ones where Red is feisty and thinks for herself, and she's not as stupid and gullible. And I like sometimes when the roles of Red Riding Hood and the wolf are played around with. Alright, so that is all my notes on there. I think I just listed about 15 versions of the tale. If anyone has some questions or comments they want read aloud, minimum is 5 gold beans. BellaPinkSavage, you said you had a senior request that you wanted to fulfill in the last stream, but I wasn't able to get to that because we cut out very early. Have you decided what you want that to be yet? I'll let you think of that for a moment. Actually, I can ask you guys a question for free. Like, do you have any versions of Red Riding Hood that you've heard of, and maybe some that I have missed that I could probably talk about if I have heard of them? I agree, this is a pretty messed up story. From the Grimms to Charles Perrault, and the funny thing, Charles Perrault usually writes the cleaner versions of the story, like Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, that Grimm somehow messes up really badly, but it was the reverse this time. Oh yeah, I'm seeing a lot of I hate the stories here. Yeah, but like I said, I like how people play around with it, but I don't like the tale and its originality. It's good lesson, just not exactly something I'd want to tell my kids, or I at least want to tell a cleaner version of it. I don't want to traumatize them. Alright. Okay, I think we need one of these now. Okay, so BellaPinkSavage, did you think you came up with that senior request that you had for... Okay, so 5 gold beans from BellaPinkSavage. I never knew about the version where Red was tricked to eat her granny. Ew, yeah. I the first time I heard of that, I was reading this quote-unquote children's magazine telling about different versions of the story, and that one where Red Riding Hood eats her grandma, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom, why did you get me this magazine? I think I was 11 at the time or something like that. I do not like this story. It's kind of disturbing. Yeah, I think the 2011 film kind of probably took some inspiration from that. I mean, they didn't drag it out as much, but when she goes to see her granny, the granny tells her to help herself to the meat stew, and then she takes one bite, and then she's like, "What the hell is this, Grandma?" Yeah. Oh, 5 gold beans from BellaPinkSavage. The comment, at least it wasn't Sweeney Todd. Yeah, at least it wasn't Sweeney Todd. I didn't even see that movie, but my mom told it in great detail, and that alone traumatized me. I think I was 10 when she told me. I'm like, Mom, why would you tell me about this? Yeah. Alright, Bella, did you think of what singing request to use for the 280 gold beans, now that we're past the topic? While you're thinking, I was thinking of what to do for next week's topic. Since we're kind of going with the theme of Stranger Danger, why not do Snow White? Yeah, I mean, why not? That's another thing about Stranger Danger, although that was really watching out for people you actually know, if you think about it. Also, I've been kind of holding out on these extra fairy tales, and while I'm doing all these extra podcasts, why not focus on them? Yeah, Stranger Danger Part 3. Seriously, don't talk to strangers. Bella, do you have an idea what song you want? Because once we're done with that, I think I might close this live stream. Unless anybody else has any questions, comments, or want to share some versions of Red Riding Hood that they've heard, any that I might have missed. And I could tell you about how I love the movie Hoodwink. That is a movie I'd highly recommend. It's really a more fun version of Red Riding Hood with all the twists and turns and everywhere. It has Anne Hathaway as Little Red, Glenn Close as a grandma, Patrick Warburton as a wolf, and Jim Belushi as the woodsman. Okay, so the singing request from BellaPinkSavage for 280 gold beans from the charity live stream that I didn't get around to. DF, sing a Taylor Swift song of your choice. I wonder if I can come up with something. I think I have one that might fit the whole overall topic. Just give me a second, because I need to remind myself of the lyrics. Taylor Swift. Okay, so before we get into this song, just want to remind you guys that always make sure that you stay on the path and don't take any shortcuts in the woods. Don't get distracted by strangers offering you pretty things and all. And also don't trust talking wolves, because seriously. Okay. Alright, let's turn this music off. Okay. And I think this Taylor Swift song really fits the overall story. Once upon a time, a few mistakes ago, I was in your sights. You got me alone. You found me. You found me. You found me. I guess you didn't care, and I guess I liked that. And when I fell hard, you took a step back without me, without me, without me. And he's long gone when he's next to me. And I realize the blame is on me. 'Cause I knew you were trouble when you walked in. So shame on me now, flew me to places I've never been. Till you put me down, oh, I knew you were trouble when you walked in. So shame on me now, flew me to places I've never been. Now I'm lying on the cold hard ground. Oh, oh, trouble, trouble, trouble. Oh, oh, trouble, trouble, trouble. All right, everybody, be sure to follow my podcast if you want to hear more. Tune in next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Become a patron by pledging at least $1 a month. Yeah, it will be a really big help, and this is my only source of income until this whole quarantine is over. And be sure to check out my merchandise on Redbubble. That's Disney Fanatic 23. Yes, Disney Fanatic 23. Okay, and one last donation before we finish this for 5 gold beans from BellaPinkSavage. Man, you're giving all the gold beans in this one, aren't you? Yeah. Bravo, you're right. That song fits so well. All right? And don't talk to strangers, anybody. Okay, bye bye.